But surely in 2022, we can come together, united by basic legal principles, to say that there's no place for horrendous crimes that constitute crimes against humanity or war crimes. And I think this is the purpose of having a permanent international criminal court. And this is really why in 2014 and 2015, Ukraine also made a declaration that they accepted the court's jurisdiction. The reality is not the words. The reality is what happens on the ground, and the obligation that as we speak, civilians, women, children, men are shivering with fear or with concern in subways or on the border or in other locations. And I think the protective mantle of the law needs to be moved from The Hague as a theoretical idea into a very practical reality. And I think this collectively is what the referral will allow us to do.
Can I ask you, because I assume that you're going to have to investigate all sides. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I underlined this, in fact, Christiane, in my statement. All parties, whether regular forces, militias, self-defense groups, have an obligation to comport themselves based upon these basic principles of humanity. And we will, as the International Criminal Court and as the office I lead, put a constant yardstick in terms of the conduct that we find that takes place or has taken place.
And what happens, because Russia is not part of the ICC, when you do not have the actual power to deter and apprehend? How, I mean, we're talking down the line now, once you've finished a lot of your forensic investigations, how do you actually get people from wherever to actually face trial?
Well, this is complex, of course, and it can take many different forms. At this stage, the quest is to get to the truth. You know very well, Christiane, being in so many conflict zones, that truth is the first casualty of war. And so we, as the Office of the Prosecutor, need to resuscitate the truth and let it walk so that it can be properly assessed and judged. So once we complete our investigations, if there are people that are charged based upon evidence, of course, then there's a multiplicity of options, from voluntary surrenders to other methods to try to bring people to the court. I want to emphasize that I'm willing to speak to all sides, not just the Ukrainian side, but also the Russian Federation, state parties and non-state parties alike. This institution is not political. We're not part of the geostrategic or geopolitical divisions that we witness around the world. We are united by these elemental considerations of humanity that really must bind us together. And I think that has to be emphasized. We have no other agenda except to pursue our mandate without fear, without favor, with independence and with impartiality. And I think the reason why so many support international justice is a hope for a better tomorrow. The law's not perfect. The state of international relations is such that there's many contradictions, but we have to come together within certain parameters. And the Rome Statute and Ukraine's declaration clearly gives us a parameter, and we must not shirk our collective responsibility. It's not my responsibility alone. It's the responsibility of every man, woman, and child. I've said repeatedly, there's no place when you're dealing with genocide, crimes against humanity or war crimes, for spectators. Everybody must play a part. And if we do that, hopefully things can get better. And at the very least, we can insist that the rights of victims to justice can be properly and fully vindicated. And if we don't try, we have no chance. At least if we try, maybe we can move the dial on accountability in a way that is positive and meaningful.
And I guess to those who really care about the pursuit of justice, you can cite precedents. And you mentioned that I've been in many conflicts. One of them was obviously Bosnia, and I witnessed the formation of the International Criminal Court to try the accused war criminals and bringing them to justice and the convictions, etc. Would you say that people should have hope that actually justice will be pursued and there is precedent?
I think some things are worth fighting for, not by the gun or by the bullet, but by principle. And we need stamina. We collectively must have the stamina and the focus to build a better tomorrow. And you're quite right that in the former Yugoslavia, many people thought there could be no accountability. And we saw, despite many naysayers, that cases were brought in terms of whether it's Karadzic or Mladic, or in Rwanda, again, Jean Kabanda, the former prime minister, in Charles Taylor in the Special Court for Sierra Leone. We see 20, 30 years after the event in Cambodia, the quest for justice was realized, however imperfect, in the extraordinary chambers of the Court of Cambodia. We don't want to wait that long. And this is why, within 24 hours of the referral, in fact, even much less time, I opened an investigation. I've already sent a team to the region, and we mean to fulfill our mandate, however difficult, whatever the paucity of resources, to vindicate the rights and the responsibilities that are vested in us. And I think that's what we're going to try to do.